Hello, good morning. Welcome to this live webinar. My name is Dave.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ivar. Welcome.
Yes. So today we have a live webinar around the MSA12X. And before we start, I would like to highlight a couple of details. This is a live webinar. During the webinar, you have the opportunity to leave questions in the Q&A tab of your webinar view. We will review the questions at the end of the webinar during the Q&A session. So make sure you leave them in the Q&A tab so we can find them easily. So just for your information, it's a session for I think 30 minutes.
Yeah,
that's our focus.
Try to keep it within the 30 minutes.
Yes. Let's get started about the MSA12X.
Yeah, let's get started. We got quite some questions about this loudspeaker, so I think it's good to make things clear about this loudspeaker.
Okay.
So, yeah, let's start.
Let's start. Right, the MSA12X steerable array loudspeaker.
Yeah.
So it's a loudspeaker, and we're going to take a deep dive to see how can you use this loudspeaker, what kind of applications, and other details and features that we're going to dive into in this session.
Yeah.
So Ivar, if we talk about the MSA12X and the applications where you can use this speaker,
Yeah.
What do you think about?
Well, I think many people are familiar with column line loudspeakers, line array loudspeakers, like the MA12 that we have, or the MA12EX, the extended range version. But sometimes you have problems with mounting. So you can imagine we use those kind of loudspeakers for acoustical difficult places like churches or. But the thing is, if you have let's say normal, just a MA12 as an example, it projects 1 meter beam into the room without having reflections on the floor, for example, or sound projected to the ceilings, so no reflections there. That means that you always need to be at least in ear height because you want a direct field to your audience. So that means if you have what we call a raked floor, you need multiple loudspeakers because you only have 1 meter of sound into your room. So that kind of places. So we use that with our MA12 or our loudspeaker for MA12 and the MA12EX to do that. But sometimes you don't have that installation option. You don't have that mounting option at that wall, or you need to mount somewhere else.
Or the architect is requiring a specific location. This is your area.
We all know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
we know the sweet spot for the loudspeakers, and then the architect comes around the corner and no, this is your space, and then you need to figure out the problem.
We all have that discussion once in our lives. But you're right. So therefore, we have a digital steerable loudspeaker, the MSA12X. So just check those applications that you see here. These are typical MSA12 applications. Here you see them as well, mounted above the people, and that we can steer down. And these are raked floors, as you see, up. Here we can steer up. And these are perfect applications for the MSA12.
Yeah.
So you saw that auditorium with that raked floor. With normal column line loudspeakers, you would maybe you need 3 at least or 4 to cover the back of that audience.
So Ivar, just before we go deeper, so the main difference between the MA12 and the MA12 extended range speaker is that the MSA12X is steerable.
Exactly. Yeah.
That is one of our powerful
features. Exactly, and that's a major difference because we can steer this speaker. We're going to explain how that works and what you can do with it. But that's the big difference, and there was a need for this, and we did a lot of research for this kind of technology, years and years.
Yeah.
And here he is. He's standing on the table here. Unfortunately, you cannot see it, but you will see it later. But maybe it's also good to dive a little bit more into the technical details, the specs of this loudspeaker,
Yeah.
because we talk about steerable. That's vertical steerable. But we also have a horizontal coverage, and we want to have the maximum coverage that we can have, and therefore we have a articulated array. Dave, maybe you can
Yeah.
explain a bit more about
So
this.
you see the MSA12 and the drivers that are inside. We took the grill off, and here you see the drivers placed in different angles from each other, and that's what we call an articulated array. So in total we have 12 of these drivers. It's actually a 2.25-inch driver, and each driver has its own amplifier.
Yeah.
That is also. So
Yeah.
that brings us to the next topic. It's a powered speaker.
It's a powered speaker. This is one of the first install, let's say, install base active loudspeaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's also a remark that we need to make here is that because it's an active loudspeaker, it's also not environmental, so it's for indoor use.
Yes.
If we talk about the applications and the use cases, it's indoor use in the
good.
areas that Ivar just mentioned.
It's good to tell the people. You're right, Dave.
Yeah.
So install active loudspeaker for indoor purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and why active? Well, because we want to be able to steer the sound, we have 12 amplifiers built in, so that we can control every driver independent, so that we can steer the sound. So we did research for that steering principle for years, and then we need an algorithm for that to bring the sound there where we want to have it.
Yeah. So just to clarify, it's an electronical and optical, acoustic steering.
Yeah.
And so there are no mechanics inside, no little motors.
Sometimes we get that question, but
Yes.
no. It's no.
Yeah.
It's
It's
driver
a patented
independent.
technology from
Yeah.
Bose.
Now we talk about that steering. Of course, there are limitations. So here you can see a steer, let's say an upwards steering. We can go up to, this is one beam that we just project upwards 20 degrees. And that's the maximum that this loudspeaker can do. Of course, we can do that also downwards, that's minus 20 degrees. And what's really nice is that we also can have a let's say a dual beam. So here we have two beams, and what you see here is that it's a 1 meter up and a 1 meter down. So it's not, let's say the half of the speaker is projecting upwards and the other half downwards. No, and you can set this by 1/10 of a degree. So here we have the steering principle, but if you have that steering, you can also spread your beam, and that's what you can see here. So we are able to steer it 20 up or down.
Mm-hmm.
We can make it in two beams, but we can also spread that beam, and we can spread it with 30 degrees for one module, I have to say. And if you have multiple modules that you can go up to 2 or 3 modules, you can spread up to 40 degrees. So you can create any combination that you need, I have to say.
So just to recap, one array either 20 degrees up, 20 degrees down in steps of a tenth.
Yes.
And then a spread of 30.
Yeah.
Degrees.
So let's say you need 10 degrees up, and then you can open the beam
Right.
with a maximum of 30 degrees if we have only one module.
Okay.
So that's how it works. That's good to know. This is all being done by software, of course, because we have an active loudspeaker. There is a DSP built in this loudspeaker. That also means that we need power. So let's check the connections first. Here you see the top and bottom of the loudspeaker. Dave, maybe you can explain more about this.
Yes. So on the bottom, you see the bottom of the loudspeaker connections. So you actually see there a power input, 220 volts in our case in Europe. You see a network port. It's the Dante network connection. And the next is the expansion port. It's a RJ50 connector. So that's if you need to stack another array on top of this one, or if you want to stack 3 of them. This is how you interconnect the arrays between each other. So it's also a power loop through, and also that RJ50 is the expansion connector.
Yeah.
So it basically needs one power feed and one network feed
Yes.
in order to operate.
Yeah, and it can go up to 3 modules. That's good to know. And it automatically sees if there are more modules connected. Our software only sees one speaker. So if it's up to 2 or 3 meters, doesn't make sense. If it's linked, it only shows you one loudspeaker, one big loudspeaker.
Yeah.
So that's about the connections. We have 2 Dante channels. That's interesting to know because we can handle 2 different beams. So maybe you want to tweak your sound for the upper row and for your floor independent. So therefore, we have the possibility to have 2 Dante channels into the speaker and tune the sound independent.
Yeah. Besides the Dante input, you also see an analog input. So if you want to go old school analog, it's there as well.
There's only one analog input. So if for example, if you put it in a configuration, you do your steering part, and you're good with that, then you can connect it analog, and then it just plays through that analog input on that, let's say, stored steering option.
Yeah. So just before we dive deeper, Ivar, so mounting wise, this loudspeaker is always flat to the wall, on its bracket.
Well, yeah, you can. That's the normal, typical way. But if you need a little bit of, you can.
So I was more referring to the.
No, we don't. You don't need to pitch.
You don't have to do that because you can steer the loudspeaker.
No, but if you need to mount it somewhere in the corner, you need to aim it a little bit. You can.
Yeah, so the bracket allows to.
There's a bracket for right.
So another thing for just if we are mounting right now, it's a heavy speaker.
It's quite heavy one.
All the amplifiers in there. So also look at the material and the structure of the wall that you're going to mount the loudspeaker. Of course, it's a heavy loudspeaker.
Yeah,
we supply the right brackets and the material to mount it really good to the wall. But also make sure your wall supports it.
Yeah, and what makes this loudspeaker even more unique is that we spoke about that steering options, like up, down, spread. That is the basic steering. You can tune that by the Control Space Designer with a tenth of a degree. So, but what do you have normally? Sound needs to travel. So you always, the sound drops. The more distance, the more it drops. So what did we do? We built pre-configured steering options with an optimized steering feature. So how does that look like? Now I'll show you. What do we have here? We have a flat floor optimized steering. And what do you see here? We want to achieve that the first row hears exactly the same as the last row. So we don't want that drop in sound pressure level. So what our array can do with the advanced steering option with the optimized feature is to keep a consistent level from the front to the back row. And what you see here, this is an optimized steering for a flat floor. We have more. We have also this version. This is our raked floor optimized, and we want to achieve the same SPL on the front row as in the back. And what you see here is a combination of steering. It's a spreading and it's a steering that you can see here. And our software calculates what to do with the drivers to get the same SPL level in the back row. So that's what we do with the raked floor optimized option. And what's also really cool is we can combine all those steering options in 2 beams. What you see here is a dual beam option, and on the bottom you see a raked floor optimized in combination with a traditional normal steering up, because we don't want that reflections on the balcony. Maybe there's a glass, or that's usual glass or hard material. So we want to avoid as much reflections as we can, and that's what you can achieve with our optimized steering features in this speaker. Of course, you can tune it. This cannot be done with the Control Space Designer. I'm going to do a demonstration how to use this loudspeaker, how to connect and how to tune, well, I have to say how to steer it with Control Space Designer. So if you want to use optimized steering, so the same SPL level and at the front and in the back row, you need to use the other software packages. So that's about the steering. And by the way, for those who are familiar with the MA12EX, this sounds similar. So it has a really defined low end already. It's a really full range loudspeaker.
Yeah, good point.
Yes.
It's a full range. Yeah.
So I think it's good. Let's start with the software demo.
Yes. So
maybe you can connect it, Dave.
Yeah.
I will
bring the MSA over. MSA 12, I must say.
So let's check it out. Oh,
There.
here you see
Here
it.
we go. Sorry for that. So I'm going to just point it a little bit to the camera here. So these were actually the same connections that you saw in our slides. So you see the power, the network, the analog input, and the RJ50 expansion port. So I'm going to connect the power plug here. Right. And that will give us a green LED. And I will show you, so you can see it's powered on. And then, on the moment, I'm going to plug in the network, the middle port, and it will show you, on the moment it's ready, a link. You see the two LEDs blinking up there. While Ivar is connecting his laptop,
Yep.
The product is connecting to the network.
Yeah, and here you see my screen. I only started the Control Space Designer, actually version 5.8, and what you see, we see the MSA 12X as a endpoint. That's how we call it. So our software, without doing anything, is scanning the network. And it's searching for endpoints. And in this case, you see it found a endpoint. And this is the MSA12X. And what do you see here? Well, we see it's connected. It's blue. That means it's online. It has IP address 0.9, so 192.168.0.9, and it's connected via Dante. So it automatically scans for endpoints, and it found, in this case, the MSA12. Before you can control this, so if I open this, you will see the settings, but you see everything is grayed out. We cannot control anything because we first need to enable endpoint control. We have to tell our software that we want to control endpoints. So first I have to close this, and when I go to system, and it's behind the camera, so I will make my software a little bit smaller for you. Then you see enable endpoint control, and I will click on that. I will make it bigger again and open the MSA12 window, and now you see some buttons here that are enabled. So let's quickly go through this. What do you see? The input side. Are we going to connect it via Dante or analog? Well, we are going to use Dante. So it's or analog or Dante. And let's say speaker EQ, that's not a speaker EQ for it's the speaker itself, but it can optimize an EQ for your purpose. So if you use this speaker for voice only, you can set your voice EQ. It has an optimization for voice. Then beam, and that's what we want to do. We want to control the beam. So let's jump into this first. Here you see the window for the basic steer and spread, and here we can adjust beam. So we have, if we enable, 2 beams, and let's steer the beam a little bit upwards, and here you see degrees. As you can see, I'm steering up, and we can go up to 20 degrees. And here you see spread, and this is what we talk about, that spreading of a beam. So we can steer it up, and now we can open the beam. maybe like this, to a maximum of 30 degrees. So let's enable an extra beam, and let's steer this one down. So we're going into the minus degrees, and you can make any combination that you want. And maybe a question can be, okay, but how do I know how to steer? Well, my advice to you, just play pink noise, sit in the audience front row first, steer your, let's say, your bottom beam first, and just you can just hear it if you are coming into the direct field, and repeat that for the last row, and check out what's, let's say, the best for you. And if you're happy with this, let's set this one, and now we can also see show beam details. So here you see what I just did. If you want, you can store this. And why would you store it? Well, we are able to store multiple configurations as a preset. So let's store this one to preset 1. Let's call it 2 beams under the preset number 1. And maybe you want to have another, maybe you want to disable the upper beam because you have a small audience, or you can easily create a new setting, and let's say disable this beam and make this minus 20, for example, and hit set. Now we can store it as well under the second preset. So how can we recall those? Well, this can only be done if you have a DSP in your installation, in your network. So if you, let's say, if you only tweak this once, you don't need a DSP, you can just feed it by analog or Dante directly. But if you want to do more, like switching presets, you are going to create parameters for that with the use of a DSP, like an ESP 1240 or whatever you want to use.
So, for example, the use case could be that auditorium, and you have a small session, you're not using the balcony, so you want to switch to project on the lower part only.
Yeah.
In order to do that, you need an ESP,
exactly.
CSP, sorry.
Yes. Yeah, and so again, this is not optimized steering. This is just simple steering, let's say.
Yeah.
But in a lot of cases, it's more than enough.
Yeah.
If you want to be really precise and with the SPL, the same optimized SPL level from front to back, you need a modeler or array tool.
Right. How many presets can you store in the
10.
up to 10?
Yeah. So this is you can store here. You can clear and select a POS, the power on state. So here you can store if power fails or is dropped or whatever, it needs to come back in a certain preset. You can select it here. Some details, beam details. I will close that. And what do we see here? Well, here you see your main beam control. That means when I go to 2 beams, you see it has 2 gains for the upper and the lower beam. If you select a preset with only 1 beam, it automatically hides the second beam. Show a beam EQ. Well, the software automatically knows that if you use multiple loudspeakers, you get more coupling. So in this case we have 12 drivers, but you can imagine if you have 24 or 36, so 3 modules on top of each other, you get more coupling in the low end. So we need to, well, you want to compensate that. So certain frequencies, from a certain point, from a frequency point, you just want to decrease it a bit. Yeah. That's a sort of array length compensation. You can check it here under the show beam EQ. On the right top, well, you see it's connected. It's not in the standby mode, and it's green. It says it's
operational.
Yeah, it's okay. If there are any can be an error message or any message. It will display here. And you see its IP address. It's set to 0.9. That are the details. Maybe you want to identify which speaker it is. Now something is blinking on the speaker. And let's jump into the advanced tab. What do you see here? Well, on the left side, you need to specify if you feed your cables from the bottom of your array or from the top, because we need to know how to steer and from which module you want to count.
Yeah.
So you can change it. An audio check, you can check all the drivers if you want. If you think something's wrong, you can activate I'm not going to do it, it's quite loud, an internal noise generator, and so you can check it one by one if all your drivers are okay. You can do that from an external source if you want. And on the right side you see your module count. So it means it understands now that it's on its own, only one module. It's firmware version and automatic standby. If you want to turn those speakers after a while into the standby mode, you can select it here or disable it, and you see the temperature. Of course, if you want to reset it to default, there's an option for it, as you can see, and if there are any problems with your drivers, it will tell you. So that's the MSA12X advanced window, and this is how you configure your steering, basic steer and spread. So let's check it out if we can play some audio.
Yes, I will put it back on its feet.
As you can see, I'm using Dante. So I have Dante controller here, and this is my Dante network for our studio. So let's check it out. I'm not going to use a DSP. I only send some audio to the speaker and straight away from my laptop to the loudspeaker, so without any processing in between. Here you see the Dante transmitters, and that's my laptop. And let's check it out. If we have on the left side the MSA12X, you see those two channels. If you're using dual beam, you have the option for 2 channels. And here you can easily click on the subscription for left to channel 1. And it's playing. So this is without DSP, straight away Dante. I play some music through the VLC player, and that's how you can connect your MSA12.
Nice
Yeah.
overview, Iver. It's pretty amazing to see what you can do just with Control Space Designer and what kind of settings you can all do with what we call basic.
Yeah. So for a lot of applications, you have enough, and you can do your tuning with the Control Space Designer only.
Thanks for this overview, Iver. It was really helpful to see what you actually can do with the MSA12X. I think it's an amazing product.
It is.
In the lineup of array speakers that we have. So with this, we're going to move to the Q&A section.
Yeah, let's do a Q&A. Again, please put it in the Q&A, because some people are using the chat window for Q&A. No, we have a separate Q&A, and that's what we're going to do to cover now.
All right.
Okay. Okay, ready?
Okay, ready. Let's look to the Q&A. I'm going to pull up my laptop here, so I can have a good look to all the questions that came in. So let's start with the top one here. Iver, can we do a stack of 4 or 5 MSA12X?
No, sorry, no. There's a protocol built in the speaker with our software, and it goes up to 3 modules. So as you have seen, actually I spoke about that. The software automatically detects how many units are connected, and that goes up to 3 only, and then it gives you one, let's say endpoint, one loudspeaker in your software available. So that goes only up to 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, another question from Rafi. What is the maximum throw distance a stack of 3 can do? practically, as per book, it says 35 meters. Want to know the practical number. So, yes, of course, Rafi, there are design guidelines that we follow, and these are guidelines. So it's always depending on the environment that you're going to place these loudspeakers. But if you look at one array, a single one, it is 10 meters. If you go up to 2, it's 25. And indeed, if you have a stack of 3, you have a throw distance of 35. Not sure if you wanted to add something
well,
there.
we are conservative in the specs. That means if we say, for example, 35 meters, at least you have 35 meters, or even some more. But you have to check it out. Don't make it 45, but check also. You always get some reflections and stuff. So you have to follow the design guidelines. But we have safe values in the technical specs.
Yeah. Please tell me, if you use a second beam, how much is the pressure of the first beam is reduced? So is there I think the question is there a reduction if you use 2 beams? And the
Well, this is a quite difficult one to answer. Yes, but the thing is, depending on how you're going to steer. If you use a modeler, for example, that's the reason why we have that optimized steering feature. So, yes, this is physics. So yes, but you can optimize this, and that works really well by the use of modeler. So yes and no. If you have a basic steering spread, yes. If you want to optimize it, use modeler to achieve the best results.
Okay. Hello, thank you for the webinars. Which subwoofer would you suggest for the MSA12X?
Good question.
Yeah, that's a good question. In fact, keep in mind that the MSA12 is the MSA12X is a full range loudspeaker. So starting at 58 Hertz, so it's already going very low. So it already does a good job for the low frequencies. In those cases that you need more power, you need some more low. Of course, you can combine the MSA12X with the MB210.
Yeah.
And to have some real power in the low.
That's a good combination. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, depending on your needs. So if you only use it for voice applications, I think you don't need. If you just want to play some music at normal level, it's fine. If you need more pressure in what you just said in the low end, we advise you to use MBT210, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, a question from Marius. With half of the speakers projecting upwards and half downwards, does it not cause phase cancellation with the drivers facing in different directions?
Well, as I told, we are not steering with half of the speaker downwards and upwards. It's a total array. And it's all about phase shifting, and so you would say yes, but we worked for years and years on this algorithm. So that's also the challenge. So if you would say yes, but we did a really good job to make it the frequency response really good on this. So yes and no, but that's the research behind this speaker. Yeah. So good question, but I can say that it sounds really good even with the dual beam.
Yeah. This is also a good question here. Can we use the speakers as a line array by keeping one beneath another in vertical position? And that's so. Yeah, I think the question is, can you really put the array and the arrays on top of each other in vertical position?
Yeah,
it's designed for doing that. You don't have to put it in an angle on the wall in vertical position because you can steer the beams. So.
And don't mount them, let's say, with a space in between, because that's the principle of line arrays, that the speakers are going to help each other. So if you have space in between those two, that effect is gone. So, and then you would see it as two different speakers.
Yeah. Can the mains or the power supply be daisy chained when in stacked formation? So yes. So the side that I showed during the webinar, that's the input for the power, and the other side of the MSA12X, you have a power output to daisy chain to the next array in the stack, and so you can daisy chain power, and also the expansion is for the RJ50 port is also a daisy chain. And I saw also when I scanned down in the question here, can you rotate the speaker? 180 degrees. So
Oh.
if you need to have the power coming from up or from down.
Yeah, we showed that in the demo. There's
Yeah.
in the advanced window, you see a top and a bottom bullet, let's say, where you can select from which side you want to feed your speaker.
Yeah. So what is the standard height for mounting, and whether it can be mounted in the ceiling like array? So let's
Yeah.
talk about standard height.
That's well, there's no really good answer for this. I suggest you to follow the design guidelines, and the design guidelines are on our website. But of course, this is a steerable one, so yeah, you can let's say tune it to your needs. Well, with the limitations that we also spoke about. If you want to know upfront if it's going to work, I suggest you to start using Array Tool. There you can draw your space and see if it works out like expected.
Yeah. What's your first line in it? What's
Yeah.
your first row of the listening area and all those details?
Yeah, you can project the sound and see if it works out.
And then it will also show you what the height should be, or the advice is.
Yeah, and if you have made your, let's say your design, your drawing in Array Tool on a Windows machine, you can export your settings straight away into Control Space Designer and push it into your loudspeaker.
Yeah. Here we have a question from Anno Roos. I see a mini jack input. Is this also an analog input in parallel to the Phoenix connector?
Good question, Arno. No, this is not an analog input. This is for service purposes. So no analog input.
It's a service port.
Yeah.
Yeah. But very good question. It might look like an analog input. I'm scanning the questions here. This is more of the similar questions that I already hit. Can you rotate the speaker 180 degrees? Yes, you can, for power up or down. Are we using Dante? Yes, we use Dante in the demo.
Maybe also good to. I use Dante in the demo in the demonstration, as you could see. So how are we going to do the control part? Because it's a Dante-based speaker. There's no other network port on it. It's Dante. So we do that control via the Dante protocol.
Yeah. Will the preset work with any third-party DSPs?
That's also a good question. I have to say no, because we do the controlling part from our Control Space Designer. Although our devices also have a control protocol, a Bose one, that is written in a document, the serial protocol document that you can find on our website. So we did some tests. It's a sort of unofficial, I have to say, to control the presets. So check out the serial document. If you really need this, please reach out to our technical specialists in your country. But let's say in the first instance, we only do the controlling part from our software.
Okay, a quick time check. It's 8 minutes past 10. So I'm going to pull one question up. So that being said, if we missed a question, make sure you reach out to your contact in the region, or your sales rep, or any other Bose contact that you have, to answer any open questions that we couldn't manage today. So I see here a question, how many MSA12 can I stack?
Up to 3.
Yes.
Let's do another one.
Yes, that was an easy one. It has... does it have any software to do separately? So what kind of software? I think it's what kind of software did we
use? Yeah, the Bose Control Space Designer software. That's the software that you need. And maybe also good to mention, I don't know if that's a question. Some people are asking, do I need a DSP? Well, no. As you have seen in our software, there was no DSP, only the speaker. So you can control it via the software. The presets are stored in the speaker, so you need, let's say, no DSP. But if you want to switch between those presets, then you need a DSP that can do that controlling part, that switching between those presets. So If you only have one option, one steering option, and that's set, it's install a base application, and you only have one setting. You don't have the need of a Bose DSP. If you want to switch, let's say, small area, big area, small audience, big audience, and you want to switch, you need a Bose DSP.
Okay. Then the last question.
Okay.
I have one more. Can we connect individual beam parameters such as EQ or loudness? So can we do some EQ on the...
With a DSP, you can. Yes, you can. So if you use a DSP, you can always put some, let's say, room EQ on let's say on top of the normal loudspeaker. But it has a built-in EQ. So straight out of the box, it sounds fine. It sounds
Good.
really good. Yeah.
Okay, with this last question, I would like to wrap up this webinar. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
And yeah, stay tuned for more webinars.
More to come.
Yes, you can look at the platform where we share this webinar for upcoming webinars.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you and goodbye.
And see you later. Bye bye.